All right. Well, so we have one person here. We have a young lady by the name of Denise Shorter, who's a former realtor, and I wanted to bring her in because as we talk about the actual class itself and what's involved with the training itself, here's a young lady who wants to be involved in real estate and selling, and she received or got her license several years ago, but she had to drop it. There were a number of different things that made it difficult for her to be able to make money, to be able to really take part in the process. So I thought it might be a good idea as I work to answer questions to also ask her, why'd you get into it and why you got out of it and what can make you possibly get back into it again? So this is Denise Shorter. Welcome aboard.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you.
For this evening. So I was interested in real estate because I love construction. I love sales. I love making money. So I thought it was a good opportunity to incorporate all of those things, and I thought it would be easier. So I took the real estate class. Now, back then it didn't have it online. Now it's online, so it's much easier to do. Right. But once I got into it, I realized that it was going to cost more than I anticipated. So they tell you this in real estate school that there's going to be a lot of out-of-pocket costs. I'm like, oh, no problem. Right. But once you get there, there's just so much. There's classes that you have to take. There's licensing. You need to your business cards, flyers for their properties, and it also takes a lot of time that you're not getting paid for. Yeah. So, like again, the classes, you have to go to the classes. You have to just spend time doing things that you're not getting paid for. And I was working full time and raising 3 kids, and it just didn't work out for me at the time. But I'm definitely going to get back into it very soon. And kids are grown now, so. Yeah. Perhaps I have more time to invest into it now. Yeah.
See, and we talked a little bit earlier today, and in looking at the entire process, I think I was mentioning to you the fact that 83% of all realtors fail within the first 5 years, which is a tremendously high rate, and you probably experienced that on your own, how difficult it is. I also looked up the fact that entrepreneurs, there is in the area of like a 44% failure rate within the first 5 years for an entrepreneur. So that was amazing for me to actually see that entrepreneurs have a higher success rate than the entrepreneurial spirit of a realtor. So that's a 13% actually survive in that situation. I think, as I was talking to you earlier as well, within our class, what we want to do is we want to make sure that you, a person who's interested in going back into that field and wanting to go and make money through real estate, the big thing is, how do you differentiate yourself when it comes to talking to a homeowner? Everybody walks in and offers the same exact package of being able to represent that homeowner. Was that your experience when you were getting involved?
Yes, absolutely. It was.
Right. Okay, and so we were thinking and looking at the experience that you actually have in being a realtor, we recognize also the fact that, again, if you can offer a differentiated service, in our situation, we're saying you can go in there and you can offer that homeowner something that no other realtor may be offering. You can offer that homeowner an opportunity to be able to bring an investor in, and that investor will go and you can negotiate, or rather that homeowner can negotiate on 100 different terms. You can even have that investor come in and put into advertising for the sale of the home rather than you as a realtor advertising, which means it's cost that doesn't come out of your pocket, and it all flushes out in the end, because I guess as a realtor, when you do put that cost out and you pay for it, you get it back. It's just you have to extend it before you get it back.
Correct.
Right. So in this situation, and working with an investor, let that investor, since they have the capital, let them extend it for the costs associated with the advertising and so forth of the house. Even the staging, if you negotiate that in, and then again, when the house sells, they get it back, so you're not having to put money out to get it sold. Would that help you to sell more homes?
Oh, that would absolutely help. Right. Tremendously, yes. I mean, there's open house, and advertisement cost and time, and yes, definitely.
So as the way our process works, and we primarily target within our class investors. And the reason why is because of course, the investors are the ones we're trying to bring in to go and work with the homeowners. So we offer them training on everything from how the deal is structured, the legal documents and agreements. What do you want to have packaged in that? How do you go and approach the homeowners? The math is a real big one. I know that when it comes to working out the finances on a home, and when it comes to your percentage, what's a typical percentage of a realtor that you've seen on you handling the entire deal?
Well, of course, it's negotiable, but what, 8%, 5%?
So that's what you've been having those conversations about, in the area of 5 to 7, 6%.
Yes.
And so that's something that's purely negotiable, or I know nowadays with the new services that are coming in, it's kind of making it a little bit more challenging from the standpoint of realtors to find a space. But is that where you're seeing it going?
Of course, I've been out of it for a minute, but I believe so. Yes, I believe so. I'm trying to think. Yeah, a friend of mine bought a house a few years ago, and I believe the realtor forwent some portion of his commission in order to make the sale of the house.
Right. Okay. So the way our process works is that, of course, all this is done, and we like to actually do this before the listing of the property. And the reason why is no one wants to step on the toes of that process and that responsibility that that realtor has with that owner. We don't want to get involved and step on anyone's toes there. So within our process, the realtor connects with the actual homeowners. And before listing the property, the process occurs from the standpoint of the partnering. That way you're not having to even question concerns related to your license and your oath of responsibilities associated with being the realtor. You're separate from that because you're not actually representing the actual deal at that point. So within, again, our training classes, they're designed to take you through and help you to understand really where the capital is coming from, where the cash originates. Within this deal, for example, if you're going in and putting in an investment into a property and you're increasing the value of that property, then that increased value of the property is something that now, as a realtor, you have an opportunity to get a percentage of that investment because you're representing that home seller. And of course, when that home sells for a higher value, you're able to get that money back out of that sale, just like that homeowner and just like that investor. So now, what would be the biggest obstacle for you from the standpoint of being able to navigate? You get your license back. How can you see leveraging the model from the standpoint of working with potential customers or clients that you may have? Have you thought about that or given that any thought?
I haven't. I don't quite understand questions, so rephrase that for me.
Meaning, for example, if you were considering getting your license, being recertified as we speak, and you wanted to start leveraging a model such as Invest Out to be able to actually target your customers or your homeowners, as I had mentioned before, there's that way to be able to offer that differentiated service. Have you seen experiences like that where you could leverage that opportunity?
What do you mean, like bring your company into like my field?
And find specific homeowners.
I think so. I mean, because realtors are a dime a dozen. So I mean, you definitely have to bring something more to the table. So I think your company is amazing. Because like we discussed earlier, that most homeowners do need renovations to their home. Rather large renovations or small things like carpet, floor, paint, things like that. Right. So to know that they don't have to immediately come out of pocket for that would to me sound like a relief. To everyone. Right. I mean, some people have maybe funds for that, but most people don't. And
I can see that. I can see that. So now, if you were involved in, for example, working with a homeowner, and what do you need to know from the standpoint of the Invest Out process to help you to become more comfortable with even being able to explain it to a homeowner as to the value that a process would add?
I pretty much know your business model, but definitely like the legalities of it. What if the home buyer after their house is renovated say, "Oh, I really love my home now. I don't want to sell it." So where do we go from there? How does the the investor paid back? Do they have? I mean, is all of that in the contract? Like, what's going to happen?
Yeah, within the way that we work our model, and there are a number of different contracts that are signed off on. For example, the joint venture agreement is the big document that partners that homeowner with that investor. That secures that. There's also something that's very similar to an options agreement with respect to the home. In other words, that homeowner is assuming and recognizing the fact that that investor is now part of the deal, and that investor now has the right to be able to go and do the renovation. And also, the home must be sold after the home is actually renovated, because the investor has to be able to get their value back. Now, if in fact that homeowner decided, well, I love what you did, I didn't have this vision on my own, my situation has changed, there's always a way for that homeowner to be able to cash out on their deal and pay that investor back on that increased value plus the profits, the cost they renovated in the property, because that's just, the investor is interested in the capital. Say it again.
And how is that? The option, like perhaps I would assume like, oh well, we did $30,000 renovations, just go get a loan, pay us back. Perhaps I can't get a loan, so what? Must I sell my house?
Yes, we have to protect the investors in these situations.
Yeah, I understand. Absolutely.
Yeah, so ultimately the investor does control the ability from the standpoint of the sale of that property, because in fact it was signed on just like with the wholesale agreement. And just like with satisfying the responsibilities, because it's not just necessarily signing off on an agreement and next thing you know, the investor can do what they want, they renovate the property and everything has to go forward. That investor has specific things that they have to do with respect to adding value to that property.
Right.
And if they break that requirement or that responsibility, then there's the other considerations that take place. But once the home is renovated, the value has been added, and the sign-off has occurred from the standpoint of the renovation, the house is sold, just like in a normal wholesaling agreement. Yeah.
So what happens in the event of, well, my house is not selling, I can't pay the mortgage anymore, we're going to go into foreclosure. Yeah. How does the investor recuperate his money in that instant?
Well, they are also bound into the property, and there's an opportunity for mechanics lien, for example. That's also what's protecting that investor from the standpoint of the money they've invested in the property. So they're protected. We recommend definitely that you're doing your title and your lien search, and you're knowing what debt actually exists on that property before you go into any deal, because if you don't have the actual liquidity in the property, the equity in the property, then why would you get involved in a deal where your chances of getting your money back are very limited? So you're only really engaging in homeowners that are not in that desperate situation of being in foreclosure or going into foreclosure. You really want to avoid those scenarios. I think those scenarios are great for the flipper because it's an opportunity to do the quick sale and so forth. But we like to go after the homeowners that are in a more stable situation because it represents a greater or reduced risk from the standpoint of being able to get that return on that investment and get that capital back.
Right.
So yeah, from my standpoint, I would never get involved in a deal where there was not equity in that property. It just doesn't make sense for me. And there's so many homes that are available where the equity actually exists. And that's what I would opt to go towards. So
you definitely have to do your due diligence, and so you pull credit reports. And I'm sure if you're going to invest, you're going to pull credit reports and financials and all of that.
Yeah, there's some similarities. I would say from the standpoint of the risk associated with it, and what I talk about even within the training class, we talk about the benefits, which is in a later chapter. But the benefits from the standpoint of there is reduced risk associated with the partnering model, simply because the less amount of money or the least amount of money that you have to put out to purchase the property represents a reduction in risk. Every dollar that I have on the table that's involved in that house is dollars. There are dollars that are at risk of being lost. And so if I'm only doing the renovation and I'm not doing the purchase, then only those renovation dollars are actually at risk. The actual capital I would have used to purchase it is no longer at risk. So even within a downturn of a market, and that homeowner losing that, the max you can lose is the cost of the renovation. So great question.
So how would it affect me as a realtor if the deal fell through and I made negotiations with the investment company to pay my to cover all my costs for advertisement, or perhaps that, once the house sells, I'll pay you out of my commission. Yeah. But what if it falls through? What?
Yeah. Well, to your point.
I need to find that money.
I think you need to go find that money. Uber and Lyft are always hiring. But now it's, again, I guess it's the same thing as what would have happened in a flip deal, because the risk, while it's reduced, the structure is still the same from the standpoint of the homes that you're selecting. How viable are those? And if you've got a downturn market, while it may get very difficult within a flip situation, at least in a downturn market, people still need to sell their homes, and they still need to get as much money as possible. So there's a softer side of it from that side.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. I'm thinking about what if all of the what ifs. Yeah. But so are you pulling realtors under your company? Like, you have your group of realtors that work under your company, or are you just going to market out to individuals and like, this is what I do, if you want to utilize my service? Right.
Great question again. What we do as an organization is we work with realtors, but we don't work as a group or as a partner with realtors. Mm-hmm. We want to make sure that, in fact, we're bringing people into the model, they're understanding it, because we think, just to back up for a second, I come from a situation where I believe in self-interest, but I also believe in what I call enlightened self-interest. And for me, what that means is I can go and I can be benefited by helping others. By service to others, I receive benefits as a result of that service to others. Within oftentimes those flip deals, in a flip situation, the investors are benefiting, unfortunately, at the expense of others. Now, it's not
like foreclosures and all of that.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And anytime you've walked through a house and you've seen something where someone's lived in there and you're no longer there, you see the traces oftentimes of pain. You see the traces of people going through desperate situations, especially when they're losing their properties. And, while the investor did nothing wrong and it's just a deal, they are also recognizing that they are benefiting as a result of someone else's pain. Whereas within our model, we believe that the investors can benefit and receive that positive energy while helping and being of support and being support to others, giving to others and therefore helping yourself. So we really try to work and understand that model and work from the standpoint of the goal was to be able to be a value add to others and not just to ourselves.
Right. Mm-hmm. So one other question is, like, for me as a homeowner, I would feel better if I didn't have to deal with everyone individually. Like, I don't have to deal with the investment company. I don't have to deal with the realtor. Like, are you going to have people that, like, I'm going to handle this for you? Like, I'll whatever you need from realtor, I got whatever you need from investments, I got you. Like, right.
Yeah, that's where we're going, actually, to be honest with you. And you hit the nail on the head. We want to make this a much bigger part than just actually teaching people how to go and do the partnering with homeowners. Partnering with homeowners is huge because it gets them into the mix. If you are out there providing this service, then you're out there providing a service that 99 times out of 100, that homeowner has never been offered such a suggestion to partner and to add the value to the home. Typically, they're going to be approached by the wholesalers or by the flippers who are interested in just buying the property, or even they're going to be researching the Zillows and the Home Lights about selling their property quickly. But in those situations, they give up so much equity of the property because that's how Zillow, that's how We Buy Ugly Homes, that's how those companies make their money. So to be able to move in a situation such as yourself as a realtor, I guarantee you've got a competitive advantage to offer over any realtor that you've seen out there, because if they're not using the service, then it's a product that they don't have on their shelves, a product that they can't pull off the shelf when it comes to talking to that ideal homeowner who their home could sell for considerably more if it were renovated. And we've seen investments as low as $15,000, for example, which is pretty nominal. $5,000 for a bathroom, the cosmetic work, the flooring, and so forth, to get it up to be cosmetically more viable from a sale potential standpoint. and then selling that home and making 25,000 more on it. So you're making $10,000 to $15,000 in profit that you're sharing, but you're still walking around maybe with a $10,000 investment from an investor standpoint, but walking away from the deal with $9,000 to $10,000, while that homeowner is walking away with an extra $10,000 on a very modest renovation that may have taken place for that home. So I know you're not an investor, but you operating an investor can come into a deal and put in a nominal amount of work and just the beautification. You know, we talked before about how many homeowners can't get past the ugly carpet or the ugly looking paint color and the fixtures
or the wallpaper. I don't like that wallpaper.
Yeah, what is that? I mean, they don't have the vision God gave a billy goat. You know, whereas there are people that can add that. There are people with that vision, and they can add that value to those homes. And so that's really where we want to be. So I'm looking for some questions.
Another question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
So suppose I'm the homeowner, and I know that my friend Kim wants to buy my house.
Right.
But Kim wants the house a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Will the investor do everything that I want? Kim wants modern cabinets. She wants, hardwood floors. She wants a pool in the back. She wants this. And, Kim's good for the contract. Will they do
You know
all that?
what? I mean, it's a great question. We haven't really looked at that scenario. We've looked at a lot of different scenarios, and the model seems like it works for a lot of different scenarios. Again, for that one, I don't see why not. I mean, there's ultimately many different ways. Kim could also go and finance in the costs associated with doing the repairs herself, save money, not having to give it to the actual investor. So there's ways for her to do it outside of even using an invest out model. But we're working with a gentleman right now who's looking into potentially having a home converted that he wants to buy, converted into an apartment, and having the renovation done from an investor. Investors coming in, going to add that value. And once that value is there for that property, he wants to be able to take the increased value of the property out and then convert the property, refinance it, and now he will own the property. He got the he got the investor to do the renovations to add the value. Now that increased value on the property, he can leverage it now, which means the homeowner made more money. He's actually able to buy the property because he introduced invest out to the process and the math associated with finding the numbers. And now he's going to be the homeowner of that home or that apartment that he can rent out for positive cash flow. So you've got some great questions.
People that say, well, this just sounds too good to be true. And it does.
I say, and thank you. I say it's all in math. Seriously, I mean, I'm a math guy. I'm a process guy. And I think that this is all about putting together a series of ideas with a series of processes. And that's where we came up with the Invest Out model. But it's also all about looking at the numbers. Because if you put them together, and within this class itself, we also offer a pretty dynamic model. It's an Excel spreadsheet with numerous scenarios, I think close to 6 or 7 different KPIs or key performance indicators. So you can actually go and put in your cost of your home, of the home itself that you're looking at. You can actually calculate it out to see what you should be paying to that homeowner, what you should be offering from a before renovation value. This is the value I would offer to you, or what I think the house is worth right now. I'm going to add in this much cost to the house and bring it up to this sale price. This is how much you would get from the deal from an increased value standpoint. This is how much I would get from the deal. And all this is available within our we call it a deal analyzer, that we're going to have it, and it's available as part of the class itself. But again, it walks through cash flow utilization. I mean, for example, if you've got $100,000 to spend, let's say liquidity wise, you've got $100,000. You can spend that $100,000 in a lot of different places. You can spend that $100,000 buying one house for $50,000 and using the $50,000, the other $50,000 to do the renovation. Or you can perhaps go into 2 deals with 2 houses and do 2 renovations for $50,000 a piece. And thus you're collecting the profit from 2 homes as opposed to just the 1 home. Because for me, it doesn't make any sense to take your money to buy a home where that money's going to be sitting for 6 months to a year while you're renovating and selling, and then you're getting that money back to have to go and buy another house. Why buy the house in the first place?
Right.
You know, so that's where the thought process comes from. Now, let me take a look and see if we have any questions from online. So, no, we don't have any questions from online, but I just wanted to kind of wrap up with you and say thank you for coming in and see if you had any final questions for me from the standpoint of how you specifically as a realtor can get back involved in selling, but yet market yourself from the standpoint of the new product that we're introducing to the market.
No, I don't have any more questions, but I think it's a fantastic idea, and especially, would take a lot of weight off of me knowing that I could negotiate my advertisement costs, because that's like 75% of,
Gotcha.
the money, like for everybody. It comes down to money that we don't have. So, that's fantastic. So.
Beautiful. And I thank you for that, because I'm talking to a number of people right now, and that's the first time that's been mentioned as one of the obstacles from the standpoint of why someone would get in and then or get out or not get involved at all because of that cost. And that's a lot. So
right.
Especially from the standpoint of the long time it takes to actually start getting revenue in from the first sale and then the second sale.
Yes,
so,
yes.
I'm sorry, was that something? So thank you very much for coming in, and this was
Thank you for having me.
Beautiful. It's a brief call, and I'm going to be doing this on a regular basis. My hope is to be able to get some investors in to get their perspective of it, and get some more realtors and some people involved in the entire spectrum, even community members, as far as what it actually means to have the homes valued or increase in value from the standpoint of what it actually does to the neighborhood as well. So we've got some great things.
What's the name of your book again, and where can I get it?
We have a book. Thank you for that. You're so kind. The book is called Partner Up, and it's available on Amazon.com. And so come and check it out. Truly appreciate your time. Again, Denise Schroeder, thank you for coming on board.
It's a pleasure.
And thank you everyone who came on today. Truly appreciate you. Have a great one. And bye.